Well, there's nothing wrong with being fired up. And that's
time to tell those, yeah.
That's really what we need now. I mean, we need people to get fired up and not fired up to, march in Denver right now. We need you to get fired up to find that person. Maybe you're running the hunting lease on a private ranch from a millionaire that needs some place to put some money this year. We need it. Maybe you're a weekend or, a houndsman that works for, you're driving nails the rest of the year and you're guiding. Your outfitter needs to be ponying up. The boss that you work for bending nails, he needs to be ponying up. There's resources out there that haven't been tapped.
And maybe, you just have one of your sweatshirts, a Houndsman sweatshirt, and you're free on the week of a commission meeting. Go. Yeah. You can show up that way too. You don't have to say anything, but just get yourself familiar with the process and show up and be supportive.
This is the Houndsman XP Podcast.
Good dog, get that bear. Get that bear in here.
The original podcast for the complete Houndsman.
Look at your coat of go, Justin Hyde. We're gonna get him.
The podcast that represents our lifestyle of extreme performance.
Get him there. Get him. Get him. Yeah, good boy. Good boy, Ranger.
Uniting houndsmen across the globe, from east to west, north to south.
If you're going to catch a cat or a lion, you have to have teamwork.
We take you to the wildest places on earth.
Yeah, so how many days a week can you spend up there?
As much as I can, to be honest with you. Anytime that I get, I'm out there.
Join us for every heart-pounding adventure on Houndsman XP.
I'll tell you like I tell everyone else, I'm going to hunt whether you're here or not, so you might as well be here.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Houndsman XP Podcast. Once again, we're bringing you one of the leaders in our community with Naomi Hersh. Naomi works full-time for the Sportsman's Alliance, and she's also heavily involved. I mean, I don't know what this girl's not involved with. Colorado Predator and Trapper and Predator Hunters Association, United Houndsmen of Colorado. She's running down to the Capitol, representing houndsmen locally, nationally, on her social media stuff. She's doing a lot of stuff. And she's all doing it, as you're going to hear, maybe when this podcast comes out, there'll be a new little future hunter and trapper in this world, because she's right there on the verge of giving birth to their first child. So making her dad a grandpa, which I'm very familiar with. So we're going to dive deep and just this is the motivation behind doing this particular podcast. It's behind the motivation for doing all our podcasts. But, as you look and you track, you see what's going on in our world. It seems like everything's bad news. And Naomi's got a very unique way of looking at things and being optimistic and finding opportunities to be successful. And I'm as guilty as the rest of you. I'm not going to lie. I look at things around me and I just start hanging my head and getting discouraged and things like that. So the main reason we did this podcast was for me, so that I'm not getting discouraged. Although on this particular issue with mountain lion hunting in Colorado, I am extremely optimistic. And quite honestly, I'm tired of turning on the Facebooks and seeing the naysayers that want to be negative and say that we can't win in Colorado. We are going to win in Colorado. I'm 100% positive of that. In all my years of dealing with legislative issues and initiatives, and I've never seen a better opportunity for us to be victorious on this issue. It's not to say we can get complacent. There's a lot of work to be done. But if you're one of those people that's like, oh, Colorado's a screwed up state, they're going to lose it. Well, you don't want that to happen, because they're going to bring the same tactics to your neighborhood, and they're going to come after your freedoms and your hunting rights. And if we can stand up and beat them, not just defeat them, I'm talking about beat them, then they're going to think twice. When somebody from Missoula comes out of the woodwork and shows up at the Capitol and says, my friends down in Colorado just outlawed mountain lion hunting, and we think we should do it here in Montana too. All it's going to take is to see how bad they got beat in Colorado, and your commissioners, your legislators, your government in wherever you're from is going to say, nope, we're not going to put our names on that. That was a disaster. And that's what we're aiming for, that disaster. So make sure that you hang in there and you listen to what Naomi has to say. She's going to dispel some of the rumors and some of the misinformation that's been put out about what's called the April season in Colorado, and give you all the facts behind all of that. But we're super excited to have Naomi on another episode of the Houndsman XP podcast. This one is a box shaker, folks. Let's get the tailgate down. It's time to dump the box. So what's going on in your world?
A lot.
Yeah, no doubt. When's the new arrival due date?
Oh, like any day now.
No way.
Yeah, it's 37 weeks a few days ago. So due date's the February 11th, but doctor says really anytime. So yeah.
Well, hopefully we can get this podcast completed.
I know. That's why I was saying, I was like, well, next week. And then I let you keep talking me back, because I'm like, well, the sooner we do it, the more chance there is we get to finish it. So
like, how soon can you be ready? Oh, I can be ready in an instant. A flash is what you said. You're like, how about after next Tuesday? Shoot,
I don't think I said that.
Yes, you did. You said, how about Tuesday or after next Tuesday?
Yeah, I don't think I said I'd be ready in a flash, but
yes, you did.
On Colorado stuff, I'm ready in a flash. Yeah. On some other topics around the country, I got to do some more research just to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And
well, I'll tell you some big news. I mean, and we're going to talk about Colorado stuff for sure, because you've been on the ground out there and working that, and miss seeing you in Denver. But I understand, you spent 2 days at the Capitol and needed to get home. But yeah, Indiana is on the move right now. Have you seen all the news for Indiana?
I've kept up with a couple of the dogs bills stuff, but that's
there's a dog bill that's going through that is going to support, responsible breeding, but it's not going the other way. It's not going to, some of the other garbage we're seeing about spay and neuter anything over 2 dogs in your house, and overreach and permits and all that goofiness.
Yeah, exactly. So like that one's one of the good ones, and we want to support those as much as we can, because they do have they didn't even need to be amended, so amendment isn't the right word, but they were written with sportsmen in mind. So we want to hold up those and support those, because it's not like we're against any type of normal good care for animals, right?
I think one of the things that Indiana, there's a lot of, the weather sucks and you can't really hunt here anymore, but other than that, for an American, Indiana's a great place to live because it's we've had conservative House and Senate for,
Yeah.
my gosh, I can't remember the last time we had a Democrat majority here, and we haven't had a Democrat governor in probably 15 or 16 years. And
Yeah, I think you
there's
guys have a
really,
good like credit card one coming up too, the credit card
yeah,
privacy stuff, and you're doing a lot of good stuff. Wisconsin's doing a couple of those. Yeah, so there's some good stuff that we need to make sure and support around the country as well. South Dakota, everyone freaked out because they had an HOA bill or they're trying to get the HOA bill through saying that HOAs cannot prohibit in any way people's firearm or ammunition stuff. So that one's another one we want to
yeah.
support.
Just to lay it out a little bit, I mean, if you guys haven't been paying attention, some of these states want to pass laws that give credit card companies the opportunity to monitor your online purchases and your purchase and different things. And if you're spending your money on firearms or ammunition or things like that, then what's the fallout from that in some of these other states, Naomi?
Well, they'll say nothing. They'll say, "Oh, it's just for no purpose at all, really. It's just
Right.
yeah, we won't put you on a list." Well, it
Right.
gives them the ability to put people on a list.
Yeah.
If they're not being like forward about it, upfront about it when they write it, it still gives that ability. So some states around the country are trying to get ahead of that, like in Indiana, and saying that this will not be allowed to happen in the future. So that's pretty cool. Some states, like of course California and New York, already have passed last year some credit card tracking, so they're actually available to look at your statements and stuff like that and see where you're spending your money. So it's good to be proactive with some of these states that are trying to block things like that.
Right. Yeah, it's when I was in Denver last week, I was getting ready to, I don't know, I was leaving the ISE show or something, and somebody said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going back to America, going back to Indiana."
Yeah.
So
yeah, I spent 2 days in Denver at the commission meeting, and then the ISE show was like right after and during for one day, and that was enough Denver for me. I was at the commission meeting, and then I called it quits there. I was like, too much stress. I'm out.
the crazy thing about, what we're going to talk about, the ballot initiatives in Colorado. Obviously, you've been there. You live in Colorado, lifelong native. We'll get to that. But, the crazy thing, the other news from Indiana is Senate Bill 241 was just introduced and read and scheduled to go to the Senate floor. And that is going to create a bobcat season for the state of Indiana. So
Cool.
talk about a dichotomy. We're fighting to save bobcat hunting in Colorado, and Indiana's we've been trying to figure out a way to manage the population because we just haven't had that opportunity. And it's really a pretty cool bill. Scott Baldwin is a Republican senator, and he introduced a bill, and it's real simple language. I wish all legislators, if we're gonna allow legislators to jump into wildlife management, this is the way to do it. It just simply stated that the DNR shall create a season and all the rules that go with it by July of 2025. That's all it says. It's just mandating the DNR to create the season. And that way, the legislators who don't know what they're doing can ensure that the DNR that does know what they're doing is going to implement a season. And when the anti-hunters come out and try to say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't have a season," the DNR doesn't have to sit back and say, "Oh, well, we understand your position," and they can just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we've got legislative authority, and we've been mandated by legislation to do this."
Yeah, that's really interesting. So they're giving the DNR power to do that. And that's, yeah, you're right. A lot of times we get confused, I think, as hunters and sportsmen when we see a pro hunting, we'll call it, bill show up in the legislature, but we don't really know what to do with it because we don't really want our legislators making wildlife decisions. We would rather see that in the biologist's hands.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that they're doing that.
Yeah, Indiana a few years ago, we went through a similar deal with our deer season where they wanted to implement. We could never hunt with centerfire rifles in Indiana up until guesstimation here. I was still working at the time. Oh, I'm going to say it was less than 10 years ago, and the legislature took it upon themselves to get very detailed in writing that law. And what happened was you could shoot a deer, legal caliber to shoot a deer was like with a 300 Win Mag, but you couldn't shoot a 270.
That makes sense.
None. It didn't make any. And so here I am out here working, and you've got these guys standing around in a group, and you got a guy with a 308, you got a 300 Win Mag, you got a 7mm mag, you got a guy with a 243. Oh, but here's this guy with a 270. Oh my gosh. Let me see your hands, buddy.
I mean, technically, yeah, that's
Crime
that's
of the
pretty
century
crazy.
right there. I told all the guys, it's like, don't write those tickets. I don't want to see them. I mean, if somebody's killing a deer illegally, or they shoot somebody, or they shoot up property, or do something stupid, then yeah, I mean, go ahead and write it. But just as part of your routine daily check, man, don't be writing that.
And not to jump too far ahead of us, but this was kind of gonna be my whole theme for today, and kind of what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about too, is that us as sportsmen, when we go and get engaged, that all we're doing right now is educating a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about. And unfortunately, that's very true on like the commissions, like the Colorado Commission. When us houndsmen show up,
let's break
we're
that down.
educating.
Yeah, Naomi. So
Parts of it.
yeah, last week, I'm glad you queued me up for that. Last week, we, the Colorado Commission discussed the mountain lion season, and they took part of it away. So break that down and tell us what actually happened there. The Houndsman XP podcast is fueled by Joy Dog Food. Joy Dog Food has a rich tradition of supporting the Houndsmen of America. Founded in 1945, Joy is proud of its history and the relationship it has built with the American Houndsman. And in 76 years, there's never been a recall. Made with 100% American-made high-quality ingredients, Joy Dog Food has one of the highest calorie-dense formulas on the market. For 76 years, this made-in-America product has kept hunting dogs in the field day after day, season after season. And when we say made in America, Joy has a long track record of fighting for American freedoms by being on the front lines against the animal rights movement and their extremist tactics. Joy will fuel your hounds and fight for your freedoms. Fueled by Joy.
Yeah, so that one was kind of sticking us between a rock and a hard place, admittedly, because at one side of it, as a houndsman, you're looking at it through an opportunity lens. So you want as much opportunity as possible, right? And because we know what we're doing.
To hunt.
Opportunity to hunt, yeah. Or opportunity to just get your dogs out,
Right.
Not necessarily even harvest a cat or kill a cat. So you're looking at it from that view, but then we're also looking at it in a view that we want to be aligned with our state biologists. We want to be able to practice what we preach and say that we are behind science-based wildlife management. So what happened in Colorado about 10 years ago, they introduced the April lion season. The April lion season was meant to be a floater for areas of the state that were not meeting their harvest quota. Then that April season would open up in efforts to help them meet that quota. Well, how our license structure is in Colorado, our license season dates also break up between March and April. So your fishing license is good till March 31st. You get a new one April 1st. To keep that consistent, April lion season was good for the next year. So you bought an April lion tag, it was good for until March 31st. So you hunted all winter on that same tag. Well, as a lion hunter.
Let me jump in and ask a question. Just make sure I
Yeah.
understand. So if I'm going to your lion season, like your lion license or your, whatever that is out in Colorado, is good from April 1st of 2024, and it will expire March 31st of 2025.
Yeah.
The way it has traditionally been. So
Yeah.
what that means is you've got the month of April, then you've got all those summer months, and then the season comes back in late November, early December next year, and you hunt until March 31st.
The same license, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And that's important because you have to have an active tag in your license or in your possession to pursue. So say I took a lion in April, I can no longer set out on a track by myself unless someone else in my party has a lion tag. If I use mine, I can't hunt the entire winter. So so what ended up happening is after 10 years, CPW just looked at this and said, well, last year we killed 2 lions in April. The year before that, we only killed 4. There's a lot of administrative work, and it's not really accomplishing what we set out for our management goals, why we put the April season there in the first place. And logically, it's a very logical argument. They're looking at their management goals, and April did not help them accomplish their management goals. And from an opportunist or a hunting standpoint, well, that really sucked for us because like my dad said, he's like, well, if I would have known that it was going to be taken away, maybe I would have harvested a cat or 2 in April,
Right.
And this is where I'd come in to say, we could have done a lot better job as houndsmen 10 years ago when that was put into place. We needed to be at the table in that commission meeting where they were introducing the April lion season. And in that, we may have been able to explain, hey, you're not going to kill a lot of lions in April because of this. And it might have been more of a conversation. So there's really no use in getting mad now, no use in getting upset now, especially when we really want to be in line with our scientific model of management. We're here to back our biologists. The good thing is, looking forward, we were in that conversation now. So next time a conversation comes up that they're changing a management plan, in fact, an Eastern Slope management plan was in discussion, and we're going to be part of that conversation. So I'm really trying to spin this in we weren't there to educate people that don't hound hunt, and we need to fix that. And we have an opportunity to do that and be there for things that change. So that was kind of the quick version of it. We can backtrack.
There's a couple things that come to mind when you talk about this. The first question I've got to ask, for one thing, that is a very confusing concept because I think in your average person's mind, and I believe it exists like in Montana and some other places that have lion hunting. Once season comes in, it doesn't go out until April 30th or whatever the date is, April 15th or whatever that date is in April. So the thought that we're looking at 2 different seasons on 2 different tags and a lot of that stuff is a little bit confusing if you're not from Colorado, if you're not used to that, if you haven't grown up in that culture, so to speak. You haven't been dealing with it. It's a little bit confusing. The other thing is the timing was on it's a hard sell to convince people that we need to be on the side of our biologists and things like that. when you've got all the other stuff going on with mountain lions in Colorado. It looks like that CPW has already taken steps to get us ready for a total shutdown on the lion season, and
Yeah,
so the optics are bad.
they are, and especially after that wolf deal. And that's where I would say just being in the backgrounds and being there at the commission is where you get a lot of information from the source that is allowing me to kind of speak from a different perspective. Because if you were there, you would have heard our state carnivore program manager speak very highly of Houndsman. And he told me in a private conversation, he's like, I will die on the Hound Hill, meaning he is so headstrong in keeping hound management in Colorado that's his thing. So when you're seeing
Hunting
your
with
state
hounds is part of the
losses-
management plan. He says we need to keep it here.
exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I actually got approached by a commissioner, and the commissioner told me like, wow, you guys are really being held up as houndsmen. And he said it kind of sassy, and I just looked at him and I'm like, I told him, and my words were yes, and we're not taking it lightly. So like we know what we're doing. We know how important hound hunting is, and all you got to do is compare it to some different states that don't have the ability to be selective with their hounds anymore. He talked about research and all that stuff. So I guess for me and the people who have listened to that and have gone to these commission meetings, they have a hard time saying that CPW is completely against us and they're doing all this stuff and kind of conspiracy theorying, turning that into a verb. When we were actually there and we actually got to talk to Mark Vieira himself and got to hear it from the horse's mouth and actually have a voice in the conversation. So they ran with it. A lot of media outlets ran with it, who weren't present. So it's not great. I mean, I miss my April season a lot. It was an awesome time to run. But
I think some of it though is just a deal where it's like, okay, so was it having a negative impact on the resource for us to be out there running our hounds? Is there some kind of negative impact? And if there's not, then it just feels like more government overreach to tell us that we can't do something that has it may not have a positive impact, but show me a negative impact. If it doesn't have a negative impact, then why are we restricting it?
Exactly. And that's why we need to be present in those conversations. So like to an administrative person in Denver who has to deal with this April lion season, it does have a negative impact on that administrative side. And if we're not there to tell people the benefit of keeping that around, they're not gonna, like I said, it's a logical argument from their standpoint. So that's why we need to keep involved in these conversations. We were a little late on this one.
Government and logic are usually not synonymous for one another, Naomi.
They're usually not. And I'll give you that. But we need to actually do our job as houndsmen and continue to be there and educate on because your houndsmen, they don't give your commissioner sits standing there who says, I am in favor of science-based management. They don't give a crap about our opportunity. They might in other states, but if you look at Washington and Colorado, and if you think your commissioners, your game and fish commissioner, want you to have all the opportunity you can as a houndsman, that's a tough sell for me. I'm sorry. I don't think they're thinking about me that way. So we need to voice our strong points and running with dogs and how that can be a very beneficial science-based management research, human wildlife mitigation, conflict mitigation, all that stuff, and get them to see how us as houndsmen are your science-based management. Because they don't unfortunately, maybe in Indiana, your game and fish commissioner there
America.
is actually really thinking about your opportunity and your enjoyment of the outdoors. Here in Colorado, that's just not true. We need to play bigger than that.
Actually,
And
you know,
that's
it's one of those things that we've got a lot of different reasons for needing a bobcat season in Indiana that aren't relative to, and they're not subjected to the political games that are going on in Colorado. You know, it's like comparing apples to oranges.
yeah,
We've got agriculture concerns. We've got a bobcat population that's impacting other wildlife species here. Um, I mean, the list goes on of solid reasons, and you would think, and again, you're expecting government bureaucrats, and I'm not saying biologists, I'm saying the people that sit at the top of these organizations that are appointed
mhm,
by their political bosses who want to get elected next time. The bureaucrats are um, you're expecting them to use logic, and we know that that's not going to work. But you would think that in the wake of what's going on in Colorado right now, they would look at a state like Indiana that's showing an explosion in predators. You can look at the mountain lion distribution maps and see how
mhm.
far east they're pushing now.
Yeah,
And the reason they're doing that is because the population is healthy and not only surviving, but it's thriving in the Rocky Mountains. And those populations are expanding, looking for new territory. It's just a natural part of it. And I think that's our job as a hunting community. We've done a poor job of educating people that don't understand wildlife management because we're busy hunting. I don't want, it's like YouTube. Okay. So Shane is always on me. He's like, man, you need to videotape your hunts on YouTube. It's like, I'm not hunting if I'm videotaping, you know.
yeah,
It's not the same when I've got to go through the process, and politics and all this other stuff is the same thing. The commission meeting happens in lion season, the ISE show, it happens in lion season, and
yeah.
guys want to be out there hunting. They don't want to do this.
No, but at some point you have to. It's a couple days and to show up there. And that's another one of my arguments that are being really hard on the CPW staff right now in regards to the mountain lion thing. There's a lot of things wrong that happened. Ask me, it's trickling down from the top, from Governor Polis. But that gets a little, conspiracy theory there if you want to say that too. But
I don't
a
think
lot
that's
of people,
conspiracy theory at all. I
I
mean,
don't think it is at this point
no,
either,
there's
but
plenty of documentation to
yeah,
show that he's got an agenda with the animal rights movement through his
exactly.
husband, and just you can those tracks are easy to follow.
Yeah, and so a lot of people writing the articles or reading the articles and getting all amped up about this mountain lion thing. My first question to them is like, well, where were you? There was 4 or 5 of us houndsmen there in the middle of lion season, and you're running on this track from reading a few articles that had a certain filter on what happened
Yeah,
when you weren't even
there
there.
was some spin. There was some
Um,
spin put on it.
yeah,
Yeah, a
and
lot of
I'm
spin.
not, and I mean, my heart, I still remember the feeling I had when a game warden told me that my April season was closed because I was excited. I was talking to him, and mine actually got closed for a different reason the year before. And he told me, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go out tomorrow. And he's like, no, you're not. It's April 2nd. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And and he told me, and my heart just like hit the floor. I like
Right.
remember. So like I understand, and I understand losing the opportunity, but I don't understand getting all amped up when you don't know the background and you weren't involved in the first place. So um yeah, I just it is a rock and a hard place. I really get it. And hopefully this doesn't, um make us lose some people. But in a state like Colorado, with the commissioners the way that they are, appointed by the governor and his husband, and how that runs, the opportunity argument just isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to show up. And I think it's really as simple as that. But yeah, so that's just like commission happening in Colorado. There's we haven't even touched on the ballot measure yet.
Right.
And that's
Well-
the thing too, is everybody was getting all amped up about this. And you're staring down the barrel of a of a much bigger subject. And my own little conspiracy theory about CPW is they're trying to show active management. So instead of the media getting all worked up that they were trying to shut things down, I think maybe that they were saying, hey, look, we're actively managing these lions.
Right.
We have an active hand in this. We can pull things away. We can add things in. That's what we do. We're CPW. And that wasn't the angle that the media
Well, I
ran
think
with.
our opposition to the ballot initiatives took that part
Yeah.
of the commission meeting and tried to ignite their base, saying, look, we're making headway. We're getting part of the season shut down, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you're thinking that it's CPW stepping up and saying, don't take this lion season away. We can manage this. We can do it.
Yeah. And as hunters, it's like, look, CPW is actively managing their lions. They're not afraid to take things away from us, that aren't
Right.
meeting their management goals, whether or not we like it. So they're actively managing this lion population. They're starting an East Slope management plan that plan hasn't been updated since 2004. So 20 years, they're going to update that. It gives them a platform to talk about lions, to get more facts out there. I think we can put a really positive spin on CPW actively managing their lion population. And sadly, that's just not what happened. But yeah, and ahead of this.
Well, I think one thing that we've always tried to do with this podcast is when a guy or gal is out there riding around listening to our podcast, give them tools to be able to talk about what we do and how we do it and why we do it and things like that. And sitting around and bashing a biologist who he does not want to be involved in the political game any more than we want to be. He just wants to go out. He's like Seth. He just wants to go out and count rats and
Yeah.
measure toenails and take hair samples and put all his little stuff in his spreadsheet and build his databases and all that stuff. He doesn't want to be a part of the political game. It's not a conspiracy where we're it's just not. I mean, I've known too many biologists over the years that their number one and only goal they're dedicated to is the wise management and sustainable management for a wildlife population. That's it.
Exactly. And we need to back them because of that they're doing their jobs. And I'll give you a link to the commission meeting, and you can watch. I don't know if you've watched it yet. Vera's presentation on mountain lions. It's very well done. It's an awesome talk. And yeah, he had the commissioners as a captive audience, and he was saying, exactly why our mountain lion management is so great in Colorado is because of Houndsman. So I'm not going to jump all over him saying that he's trying to take anything away. And I had conversations with him in the hallway, and he's like, we can agree to disagree on things like April season, but that stuff is going to be adaptive, and they're managing the mountain lion population, and we can have a say in it. So
right. And it just goes back to building that narrative and being able to, I'm not going to say we shouldn't have to justify what we do.
Yeah.
that's not a good choice of word, but being able to educate people and tell them why,
Yeah.
we've got to have a better answer than this is American. It's my freedom and my granddaddy did it,
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
we've got to have a little more tools in our toolbox and Cody
And
Lostro, Cody Lostro's post about, showing that picture of that nursing female lion,
yeah.
that when a guy can take a situation like that and then use that to show why houndsmen have that ability. No other hunter has that ability to be able to make a call like that.
Well, and I'll go a step further and say, um, and we have one commissioner, bless her heart, Haskett, on the board, who continuously does say that tradition and heritage are an important component of this. And if you want to argue that point, you can go to the commission. It still goes back to that, well, where were you? There
Right.
was this awesome guy that got up and took his 3 minutes, and that's it. That he was very articulate and very kind to the commissioners, and that's what he said. He said, my family has been hunting lions and bobcats for generations, and this is what's going on.
Right.
So he yeah, so you can jump in and make that point as well.
Right.
It's not like you have to be scientific. Um
You don't have to have a biology degree
yeah.
to sit there and be able to say, hey, when I'm lion hunting, I can walk up to a tree, or if I'm trapping bobcats, when I catch a bobcat, when we're talking about management plans and talking about harvest goals and different things like that, I walk up to a bobcat in a trap. Now I can say, okay, this is a nursing female. She needs to be turned loose. This is
Yeah.
a juvenile male that probably needs. This is an adult male. We can make those decisions like
Yeah.
no other sporting group can, and we've got to be able to talk about that in a way that um, that lends credibility to who we are and what we do, rather than I chase lions because it's fun, you know,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah. And so that's the commission. So now like we need to kind of, in our heads as houndsmen, that is what it is, the April season in Colorado. We have a much bigger thing we're facing right now. And if we haven't noticed, it's all our argument is science-based management, right? So that's the other end of this is like I might have been a little bit more apt to jump on board for our April season and against CPW or whatever you want to call it if we weren't looking down the barrel of a gun of our argument is science-based management,
Right.
um so we got to think about that too.
So, okay, I'm kind of slow. I want to make sure that I'm getting exactly what you're saying. So, we can't come out and crucify CPW for shutting down a lion season because in April, because it had no scientific benefit, and then convince voters that, hey, we need to keep lion hunting on the landscape because it's science-based management.
You just hit it. Yeah. Right
Okay.
there.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with saying both of those things at once. Maybe some people
Mhm.
are, but I just
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm too truthful. Maybe I'm not a good politician. I can't say both, right? I can't please both audiences by saying both
Right.
things.
Well, that's why I wanted to talk to you about everything that's going on, Naomi, because you've during this is a good segue to the ballot initiative stuff, I think, because you've talked me off the ledge a few times. When I call you and I'm wanting to rant and rave about something, and you're like, oh, I think maybe you ought to look at it from this aspect. And then there's been times when you've wanted to rant and rave, and I've said,
Yeah.
oh, maybe we ought to look at it. So
Yeah.
I absolutely I want to jump right into the ballot initiatives, and I got to start this portion off by saying that this is not about us as houndsmen. Are we going to be directly affected? Absolutely, we will be. So I'm not telling anybody to like turn off the podcast right now. We're just casualties of a bigger war, and that war is there is a real war going on out there where the anti-hunting crowd is trying to move hunting and the management of wildlife away from science-based management. It's real. It's going on. It goes right with the rewilding initiative that's going through the UN. So we need to understand the landscape. We got to understand the battlefield if we're going to be successful. So will we be affected as houndsmen and lion hunters? And yes, we will be. But this is just a skirmish in the bigger war.
Yeah.
So,
and like that, one of our alerts today for Sportsmen's Alliance was the fur sale ban that they're dealing with. I don't know if you saw that one yet. They just had a bill come out to ban the sale of fur. So
yeah, that's in
this
the
is not,
Denver metro, or is that a state?
this
bill?
is a Washington one that just
Washington. I'm
hit.
sorry.
Yeah, Washington state. But yes, there is a ballot measure in Denver. So Denver city limits is looking at the same thing as sale, a fur ban sale. So it's everywhere.
And while we were at ISE, there was this huge booth that had nothing but fur in it, man. I mean, it was like a 40-foot long booth by 20 feet wide and just packed with all kinds of fur in it. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, and we'll see if they're able to do that next year, because if that goes through in Denver, it's kind of a pretty likely chance that it will. You won't be seeing that at ISE next year. And things like the stock show, how far is that going to go? Fly fishing equipment, they use fur. Technically, that would ban that. So there's it's not just us as houndsmen, but it is the battle that we're facing right now. So we can give it our all, One thing that I thought was interesting, I just got while we were preparing for this, or while I was preparing for this, is it looks like they are going to run with Initiative 91. So to gather signatures on. And so that is an interesting development. We were worried about Initiative 101, or even possibly a different one, since they have till like the end of March. But it looks like they're going with Initiative 91. They sent an email out to their supporters and their subscribers saying that they are, so that they can start gathering signatures. Just to remind everyone, I guess 91 was the original, and the one that we got the term trophy hunting actually taken out of. So that's good. It doesn't say what you will see in the blue book in Colorado will not say trophy hunting on it. They could pull a complete switcheroo on us. Honestly, they could. But right now it's looking like it will not say the words prohibit trophy hunting, which is good.
That is good for our cause. But like you said, pull the switcheroo. I don't, until it's printed on the ballot. Then
yeah, and they're gathering signatures on it. And once they gather signatures, if they gather signatures, they cannot change any word that they gathered signatures on. So yeah, so if you look at the title board right now, it is asking if there should be a prohibition on the hunting of. Doesn't say trophy.
Good.
So yeah, it's important to remember that it's not just like a grand win, but it is an interesting development.
I want to make sure, and this is the other reason we want to do this podcast, we can win. We can win this thing. I see comments coming out constantly on social media that Colorado's screwed, and you know, there's a few things here. For one thing, it's easy for us to sit back and say, Colorado's a crazy state. They lost a long time ago with you know, the development of the Front Range and all this stuff. They're just another California. But I want to make this very clear. There's a reason why Colorado was chosen to push this kind of a hunting ban through, because they think they can win there. And while they may think that, the feedback that I got while I was in Denver a few weeks ago was very different. I think they're being overconfident about this thing. I got to tell you this story about this Uber driver that we had
In Denver?
in Denver.
Oh, did you chat with them about the upcoming
We
ballot
did.
initiative? Oh,
I
you
talked to-
bet.
I-
Good.
I talked to waitresses. I talked to Uber drivers. I talked to the
So
people at
good.
the front desk at my hotel, and it was
We all
overwhelming.
should. Good.
It was overwhelmingly supportive of what we're trying to fight against.
Good.
And I'm not trying to be stereotypical here at all, but we got picked up in a Subaru Forester, and it was probably a mid to late 20s young lady with orange hair and a nose ring, and she was wearing, I don't even know what kind of knit cat hat she was wearing, but it looked kind of like progressive, you know. So
Yeah.
hippie type.
Yeah, it
And
was
so we're
Denver.
driving so we're driving down the road, and she's hauling us to the show, and it was Shorty and me and Joe the neighbor. We were in the Subaru, and it was funny. She's like, "So what are you guys in town for?" We're going to the International Sportsman's Expo.
You're like,
And
oh boy,
you
here we
just-
go.
Here we go. Oh yeah, you guys exhibitors there? Yeah, we're working with Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, working in their booth. Oh, well, what kind of things do they do? And it's gotten into the ballot initiative. She goes, well, what is that ballot? And the whole time Joe the neighbor's up front, and he's just like, oh boy, here we go. You know,
Like, why am I in front on this
yeah,
one?
why am I sitting in the front seat? But when we started talking to this young lady, she was like, well, yeah, you should keep wildlife science-based managed. That's ridiculous, you know, to think that you can just allow mountain lions to run around the countryside unchecked and no management on them at all. They're going to be in downtown Denver, you know. So, and that was the response I got from multiple people in Denver. So, you know, when I see people say, we can't win this thing, I'm telling you right now, we can win it. I've never seen organization on a fight like I'm seeing right now for this. We've got industry leaders. We've got industry, both merchandise companies and the REMF and Wild Sheep and Mule Deer Foundation, and everybody coming together, and we're meeting our goals, and we're not there yet. We haven't met our goals. We are on track to meet our goals to raise the money we need. So stop shooting holes in the boat.
You know what app I use on my phone more than any other app besides the podcast app to listen to this here podcast? I use OnX. OnX Maps is the most comprehensive mapping system for hunters on the market today. I use it all the time. When I was in New Mexico, I was looking at 40,000 acres of ranch that I needed to learn. I flip open OnX and just start studying the map. When I'm riding trails, I put the tracking app on. It helps me get around in strange country. I could mark water sources, food sources, bear sign, just all kinds of options within OnX. You need to check out OnX Maps by going to houndsmanxp.com. Click on the link on our sponsor page. You'll go right to OnX Maps, and when you check out, enter the code HXP20 and you will get 20% off of your order. Know where you stand with OnX. The Houndsman XP podcast only endorses products that we would use ourselves, and I do use Elite Nutrition supplements. Elite Nutrition offers supplements for your horses, your mules, your dogs, and even you. These all-natural products work with your dog's natural immune system and its normal, natural body function, not to treat symptoms, but to fix problems. Stop pumping pharmaceutical toxins into yourself or your dogs and start using these all-natural products that work with the perfect system that God gave you. Go to tryelitenutrition.com and check out their products for wound care, prebiotic, probiotic, puppy stuff. It's all there. Parasite control. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition.
Exactly.
We're going to do this.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that too. Or I'm seeing a lot of, I guess not to be hypocritical, because I said that we should have been in the conversation, way back in April if we wanted to keep, or way back 10 years ago about our April season. But I'm seeing a lot of like, oh, well, we should have done this 10 years ago, or we should have done that 2 years ago, or why isn't anybody doing this? And it's like, well, if you really want to do it, figure it out. And
Right.
until you get that figured out, here's where you can support the efforts that are going on now. And just be helpful. Don't, like you said, be shooting holes in the boat. And I'm a little grumpier than I usually am nowadays. You can probably tell. But
You've got all kinds of
instead of-
hormone stuff going on,
yeah, instead
imbalances.
of getting all like wavery and getting a little oh, should I say this, should I say that? That's just not how my mouth is working right now. I'm sure you talking to me today is a little different than our last podcast we did, but yeah, it's
well, there's nothing wrong with being fired up, and that's really that's really what we need now. I mean, we need people to get fired up, and not fired up to, march in Denver right now. We need you to get fired up to find that person. Maybe you're running the hunting lease on a private ranch from a millionaire that needs some place to put some money this year. We need it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a weekend, or a houndsman that works for, you're driving nails the rest of the year, and you're guiding. Your outfitter needs to be ponying up. The boss that you work for, bending nails, he needs to be ponying up. There's resources out there that haven't been tapped.
And maybe, you just have one of your sweatshirts, a Houndsman sweatshirt, and you're free on the week of a commission meeting. Go.
Yeah.
You can show up that way too. You don't have to say anything, but just get yourself familiar with the process and show up and be supportive. And yeah, it was really interesting sitting like literally across the aisle from their campaign manager, the Cats Aren't Trophies campaign manager.
Yeah.
You get to put yourself in those situations and kind of learn a lot just from observing the room.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot you can do. There's another thing that just came out, which I mean, I just got this like while we were talking here.
Yeah.
Got distracted for a second, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife went ahead and put a FAQ, a fact sheet, out on bobcats, mountain lions, and lynx. So that to me shows that they're trying to show that they actively manage a species. Like, I think that's pretty cool. So not to be all like pro state agency or whatever, but they just put a sheet out. I can flash it to you right now, but I'll give you a link about
give me a
how
link
they
for that.
manage those three species.
Okay,
So
so as a
they're not
former
afraid.
government employee, a retired government employee working in wildlife management business, there were several things that would come out where we would be told that this is the way we're going. CPW obviously has a gag order on them where they can't directly speak to 91. So when I see things like this come out, your frequently asked questions flyer come out, they're saying, we want people to be informed about lion, bobcat, and lynx management. And when the governor's office calls, they've got deniability and say, aren't we supposed to be educating the public? Aren't we supposed to be managing a wildlife species? How do you expect us to manage a wildlife species if the public is not informed about the wildlife species? It's just I'm not going to say well, yeah, we were kind of subversive in some of the things that we did,
And I'll tell you, if you look back at that commission meeting, it's really interesting because they did, there was a couple people in these commissions trying to push them to do this. And the commission told CPW, that's probably a good idea. Let's put something out. And so they kind of put a rush on it. And one of the commissioners, however, though, he's like, well, maybe before we put this out there, and of course, these words aren't verbatim. It's kind of the vibe of what I got from him.
Yeah.
But he was like, maybe before we put it out there, we should give these organizations a chance to look at it and make sure it's not tipping one way or the other. To which our side said, no, how about we just put some facts out?
Right.
And the other commissioners thankfully agreed with that and agreed that there is no reason to ask organizations for their input on a fact sheet about certain species. So this is another pretty good, I think that's awesome.
So it just came out while we were talking. You just got
I just got the link. Yeah.
Right.
And I actually did a quick search for it, seeing if I could find it somewhere, and I haven't found it anywhere yet. But it does have the CPW logo and everything on it right now, so it's out there. I just have to find the right link connections.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm telling you, those I'm not saying that agency heads and stuff like that are on board, but man, Seth Hall's a wildlife biologist, and that guy, he's ate up with hunting, so when I see people say stuff like, biologists are a bunch of tree huggers and they want to shut all hunting down and all this stuff, man, there is nothing farther from the truth. If a wildlife, and we should be this way too, if we truly want to stand up and say there isn't anybody that cares more about mountain lions than I do, then if the science shows that we shouldn't be turning hounds loose on mountain lions, then I think we need to fall in line with that. There's certain places that can't sustain a harvest of the mountain lion. Florida, take Florida for instance. The Florida panther. The population is in peril there. I mean, it's in real jeopardy. So do I think we ought to be able to go, because I'm a houndsman, go down there and run lions? No, I don't think we should be able to do that. We should be working to create a sustainable population where someday that's a possibility and part of the management plan, but just
or
because
maybe use our hounds for that research purpose.
And
right?
they have been. Roy McBride and Shorty Gorham and Roy McBride worked down there for several years on the Florida panther thing, and it was because of Houndsman that they were able to gather the data that they got to develop a management plan. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some good things coming out. I don't want to get when I talk to Dan Gates, he'll always be real quick to not take away my optimism, but maybe saying that in a better term. Don't get rose-colored glasses just because a couple things rolled the right way.
Right.
So,
it's not over till it's over.
Exactly.
But the thing that the reason Houndsman XP has taken Colorado and called it the battleground for Houndsman 2024 is because I can't state this enough. If our opposition is successful in Colorado, they have been able to get a game plan together to defeat us anywhere and defeat hunting anywhere. And I don't care if you're sitting in Indiana, I've been bragging about being American. I don't care if it's Utah or if it's Montana or Wyoming. Man, look at the population dynamics in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
Google is building a metroplex there. There's all kinds of
Jackson, Yellowstone.
Jackson. Oh my gosh. And the Luke Worthingtons of the world living out there on his ranch waiting for his wife to bring him beer in Copenhagen home from town. As much work as he's doing out there for Wyoming Houndsman right now, there aren't enough Luke Worthingtons out there to stand up to an office building full of Google employees that moved in from California.
Yeah,
So,
and I'll use them as an example when I'm talking to people. Like they're doing great things proactively right now up there. And that's some place that we strive to be in the future. But right now we gotta buckle down and look at what we're doing. And then after we get over this hurdle, we just got to keep running.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting.
This is an opportunity for us, and this is why I'm so optimistic and so positive about what's going on. I have not seen activation of the hunting base like this on any other issue in my whole life. If we would have done this in California and Oregon and Washington, and I've already admitted I was asleep at the switch during those times, but I was also, as 20 years ago too. So, and
I get to use an excuse that I was probably, I don't know, sitting in Brit Lit class or algebra or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But those ships are sailing. There's got to be some point where we drive our stake in the ground and we say, this is where it's all going to stop right here. We can't afford it. And I don't want anybody to be comfortable. How many times have you said during this podcast, this recording, that we should have been there 10 years ago? What if we would have done this 10 years ago? Well, that's where Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and all these other places that are seeing these huge population explosions from the West Coast. You guys that are in leadership there need to be thinking about this right now. If you wait 10 years, it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. That's right. And we gotta, I know it's overwhelming, and I feel bad sometimes because I'm lucky enough to keep up with all this stuff as a job.
Right.
And I'll reach out to other people and be like, hey, just so you know, this went on or this went on. And they're like, I can't keep up with it all. And I'm like, that's okay. Just keep up with what you can. And, ask me what's going on. I'll send things out. There's resources like the Sportsman's Alliance newsletter. I've been sending those out, and those will come up with everything that we're watching throughout the country. And there's ways that you can get like quick snippets of what's going on, and at least your ear will perk up and be like, yeah, I heard something about that, when it's time to actually do something about it.
Yeah. And I think that's where we get bogged down. We think, well, I can't do all of that. I can't be, and that's what I do too, Naomi. I track this stuff and I produce a podcast, but that's why I produce it, so that people out there don't have to do all this stuff. You just tune into this podcast and you can find out. All we need to do as individuals is do what we can, and there's a great Bible lesson that goes with this. In the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah talked about rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem. The Babylonians had come in and laid waste to the whole land. And Jeremiah's instruction to the people was, just go out and build the wall that's in front of your house. Just build that part of the wall. That's all I'm asking you to do. We don't have to worry about if we all do what we can.
Yeah.
We'll build this wall and we can do it. But sitting back and saying, oh, it's a lost cause and we'll never beat them, we'll never beat the antis, we're going to beat them. And I said it in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, I don't want to just win. I want to beat these people, where when they're sitting in their boardrooms on what date is that election? November 5th?
I believe so, yeah.
November 6th, they're sitting in their boardroom, drinking their mushroom coffee and saying, holy cow, how did we lose that? How did we have to? And that way, when some Karen from Kalispell shows up and says, hey, let's outlaw mountain lions, people are going to say, yeah, we tried that in Colorado and we spent a bunch of money and we lost our butts.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. That's I think what we all want to do. And along with it comes some, it's not always going to be really straightforward. So getting the right information from the correct sources is really important too. So yeah, and we covered that real good
All right.
as well.
Let's wrap it up by, you said it, the correct sources. People need to be going to savethehuntcolorado.com.
Yep.
Current updates there.
Yep, it's with Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management. That's their page. Yeah.
CRWM. Give a shout out to howl.org. They're doing some, they're releasing a lot of information on it. Robbie Kroger from Blood Origins is releasing a lot of information. Sportsman's Alliance. This podcast. There's tons of places where you can get the right information. Don't be trying to get figured out from the Denver Post or the Denver Sun or wherever, that's all spin. So
yeah, there's enough out of it. There's enough out there right now that's really not an excuse to get all amped up over some headlines. We should all know better by now, really. Like, how long have we been saying that?
No doubt. No doubt.
Just because they're about hunting and we know a little bit about hunting, we still get spun up over the headlines. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
But there is enough resources out there with good information.
The vaccine is good for you.
Yeah. That's what the headline will say, right?
Yeah. For sure.
You need to do your own research and figure out a little bit more about that. So Sportsman's Alliance, there's, like I said, those weekly updates. Those will be good, especially because right now we're spending I'm putting out 4 to 6 alerts a day. So if you just watch our website, it's getting to the point where you have to hit that next page to figure out what even happened yesterday.
Right.
So that weekly update is a good way to keep up with some stuff that we can actually do things about, like sending emails to your legislature and keeping up on these ballot initiatives, which are different in every state. So.
Well, Naomi, I appreciate your time. You wear so many hats, and with the Colorado Predator Hunters and Trappers, or is that right?
Yep.
Trappers and Predator Hunters.
Trappers and Predator Hunters Association. Yeah.
Yeah. You're involved with CRWM, United Houndsmen of Colorado. Your full-time job is with Sportsman's Alliance, but you're always positive about this sort of stuff. And that's what I wanted to do, man. I wanted to have a let's go rah, go team type podcast and fire the base up and say, man, this can be done. It's winnable. And you're the right person to have on the podcast for that, because you're always positive about stuff.
Well, hopefully I stayed with my positive nature this time instead of going a little too rah-rah, but it's always good talking to you, and I know we can go back and forth a lot and try and kind of figure things out, and it's been good.
Yeah. Well, Naomi, I'm going to wrap this one up, and probably the next time I talk to you, there will be an addition to the Hersh family, more than likely. Maybe not, but good luck with that.
Maybe. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's
you bet. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast. Like we said, you can support this fight in a lot of different ways. The best way is to go to savethehuntcolorado.com. That is CRWM's website, and make a donation right there on the website. Another way that you can do that, and I'm not telling you not to pay your dues to UHC, because they're working in this thing too. We just need to find, however you can get that money there right now. I mean, this is the phase of this fight that we're in is that fundraising phase. And I can't stress enough how important that is. We know that we're outmatched in the funding from the animal rights groups. So that's why there's so much talk about money. It's not that anybody's got their hands out. It's that we're begging. We really are. We're like, hey, this has got to happen, and it's going to take money to do it. It's just the way the business works. You can also go to houndsmanxp.com and buy one of these sweatshirts, our Join or Die collection, and we're donating the profits from that sweatshirt directly to CRWM. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. This is Fair Chase.